Hello everyone. Welcome back to your favorite podcast, Vinci Talks. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about music. So tighten your seatbelts and let's get started. First things first, the evolution. My co-host Kate and I will be walking you through this. Number 1, classic music. Classical music is a current that begins around 1750 and ends around 1820 in Europe. Today, this type of music is associated with serious people, as it is a culture style, typical of a very formal, refined, and elitist environment. Some of its main authors are Wagner, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, and so on. Number 2, blues. Blues is one of the most important and influential music genres of recent times. It originated in the late 19th century when African slaves were transported to the United States. It is a combination of African and Western music that led to the genre that we know as blues. This style has influenced almost every genre of popular music that was to come at the time: jazz, soul, hip-hop, etc. B.B. King, Eric Clapton, Duke Ellington, or Stevie Ray Vaughan are some of its main exponents. Number 3, jazz. In the late 1800s, most African American musicians only played blues, but some also played classical music and learned European harmony. Some even mixed European harmony with the rhythms and scales of the blues, and it was thanks to this mix that jazz appeared. One of the greatest jazz musicians was the trumpeter Louis Armstrong, but artists like Frank Sinatra are also known worldwide. These are different types of jazz: Latin jazz, bebop, swing, but they all preserve the essence of this style. Number 4, rhythm and blues, R&B. In the 1930s and 1940s, another genre was beginning to develop. Many African Americans formed small gangs and sought work in bars and pubs. The bands were forced to create a new style, which would be called rhythm and blues, or R&B. In their early days, R&B bands were loud and lively, basing their strength on drums, double bass, and electric guitar. Today's most prominent artists are Usher, Icon Beyonce, Chris Brown, and R. Kelly. Number 5, rock and roll. In the early 1950s, another musician called rock and roll was all the rage. This style was created by musicians who could perform both R&B and Western swing, a popular style of country dance music. It used the same instruments as R&B at the time: electric guitar, double bass, and drums, and had a touch of blues and R&B, but the melodies were more akin to country music. Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry are the representatives of the most classic rock and roll. Elvis Presley is considered the king of this genre. Number 7, gospel. Gospel music is a musical genre that was born in African American churches in the mid-20th century. Thanks to the fusion of spiritual songs of the black slaves who embraced the Christian faith and the traditional hymns of white music. Gospel music is a type of music for congregational use, with simple music but with marked rhythms. Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, and Andre Crouch are some widely recognized gospel musicians. Number 8, soul. Soul music is a genre of African American popular music that greatly influenced many later genres. For example, funk music, dance, hip-hop, and contemporary R&B. It developed in the US in the late 1950s from gospel music and other styles. While gospel was a more upbeat type of music with a choir moving clapping, soul was slower, deeper music. James Brown, Sam Cooke, Marvin Gaye, and Amy Winehouse were worthy representatives of this musical genre. Number 9, rock. The young musicians were also interested in R&B. They studied its harmony and characteristics and soon learned to play it. Before long, they were combining these older styles with rock and roll to create a new genre called rock. If rock and roll was danceable, rock ceased to be, and focuses on transmitting pure energy and lack of control. Over time, the electric guitar is given more weight, and other rock subgenres such as hard rock, psychedelic rock, punk rock, or folk rock emerge. The Beatles, Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, David Bowie, or AC/DC took rock to a higher level. Number 10, metal. Metal started from hard rock during the decade of the 70s and experienced an explosion of musical groups during the 80s throughout the Western countries. Its main characteristic is the importance that is given to the electric guitar and the drums to generate forceful and energetic sounds. Iron Maiden, Manowar, Opeth, Metallica, Anthrax, or System of a Down are well-known representatives of metal. Number 11, hardcore punk. Hardcore punk starts from rock, giving great importance to electric guitars and drums. However, the vocal part, very forceful and based on verses practically sung loudly, tends to rival in prominence with the previous ones. The musical pieces are normally short or very short, and the technical complexity is not sought but rather the energetic expression of emotional states, the vindication of political and social causes. Bad Brains, Minor Threat, Dead Kennedys, Agnostic Front, Black Flag are classic examples of this type of music. Number 12. Country. Country music was one of the earliest genres of modern American popular music. It developed in the southern states of the United States as a mix of British Isles folk music, church music, and African American blues. Its characteristic instrumentation includes acoustic guitar, mandolin, violin, or banjo. Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Icon Taylor Swift, Patsy Cline, or Garth Brooks are country artists. Number 13. Funk. In the 60s, some soul artists like James Brown developed a more rhythmic style called funk. This genre was the starting point for many new styles of dance music, such as disco music. Funk is characterized by very powerful bass lines and an energetic rhythm. Funk music has a distinctive groove and riffs that invite you to get up and dance. James Brown, George Clinton, Prince, and Matthew Parker were representatives of this musical style. Number 14. Disco. In the early 1970s, nightclubs called discos were employing DJs to sing songs for the dance floor because it was cheaper than hiring a marching band. They started by putting more upbeat funk and soul songs, but in the mid-70s, songs that were easier to dance began to be commercialized, aimed at this audience. Michael Jackson, Icon Madonna, Earth, Wind & Fire, and Cher represent this musical genre. Number 15. House. In the early 1980s, a new style of dance music developed in gay clubs of New York and Chicago. As in disco music, the songs had catchy melodies with lyrics that spoke of having fun or making love. House is characterized by the quaternary rhythms of disco music, but drum machines and synthesizers are frequently used in place of classical drums and other instruments, although the electronic piano continues to be the central axis in the most house music. Eric Murillo, Tina Moore, Tim Deluxe, and Night Demetrius are world-renowned house artists.
Then we have techno, that was another genre of dance music. It was developed in Detroit in the early 80s, and same as house. They use electronic drum machines and synthesizers with keyboards to use their melodies. And one of the subgenres of techno was the trance. Then we have pop. That is not, well, they tell us that it's not a specific music genre. It means that it's so popular that they don't have really like a specific one. But it's often to talk about the most popular types of music close to social conventions by millions of people around the world. And well, we can see this in disco shops, advertisements, etc. The pop includes different types as musical genres, as I said, and has more audience to do with for whom the songs are intended. Then we have ska, that its origin is in Jamaica in the late 1950s. It contains elements of menthe music and calypso, jazz, and rhythm and blues, and it is influenced by other styles such as the rocksteady or the reggae. And the reggae is also originated in Jamaica, is one of the more famous ones, and it was, as I said, it was influenced by the ska and the rocksteady, the same, but also by other styles such as blue or jazz. These types of music, their lyrics are linked to any social criticism, but all other types of topics. And its greatest exponent is Bob Marley. Then we have drum and bass, that is characterized by fast drum beats and punchy bass lines. And this musical style is considered an underground music style, but it is influenced by many notable pop cultures of many countries, and the principal is United Kingdom. Then we have garage, that is also known as UK garage. It's a style of electronic music originating from the United Kingdom, influenced by drum and bass, in which it is possible to find voices sung or rap with style other than hip hop. We have flamenco, that is a traditional Spanish music that we all know, and it is born in South Spain and is closely related to the gypsy culture, which is very flamenco is characterized by having talented guitarists and also to be a really dancing style. Then we have salsa, that is a musical style that is closely linked to any dance of the same name. Well, it's interesting because the word, the name is, the origin is not Latin, it's actually New York Bronx, but it has Latin influences, and their principal exponent is, well, the country that exports Georgia is Cuba, being the country with most weight in this creation. And the salsa is one of the most popular music styles among all the Hispanic cultures, and well, one of their greatest exponents is Celia Cruz. Then we have hip hop, that it was developed in the late 1970s and created in the summer New York City by the African American teenagers. Well, this style developed many artistic movements such as the breakdancing and the graffiti. And well, in addition, in its variant called trap, it is usually mixed with many types of music and sound effects that are not musical in themselves. Then we have reggaeton, that is a musical genre that its origin is in Puerto Rico in the late 1990s. It was influenced by hip hop and Latin American and Caribbean music. Along with hip hop, it is usually classified with a category of urban music. And well, continuing, we have the vocal musical a cappella, which is one of the most interesting things here. That we all know that is characterized by just using the voice. It can be in an individual or a choir. And well, also we know that is only voice. They use also some instruments such as guitar or saxophone. And the instrumental music, which is one of the most famous one because we can see it in movies or any type, is one of the most interesting because you just only use instruments and not the voice. There are two variants: the symphonic, and which is played in orchestra, or electronics when created by electronic instruments. Then we have the pragmatic music, that is used when telling a story or an event. It is a type of music used to describe a landscape or emotions or yeah. The important thing here is that not the music itself, but the effect that the music has in the narrative or the environment that is told is really interesting. Then we have the furniture music, that, as its name suggests, furniture music is Indian. I like to compare with the music that's more low, in a way that it accompanies the creation of present context, and it is used mainly in hospitality or that music sector. And finally, we have the soundtrack, that is from the musical point of view. I really like this music. The vocal and the instrumental music used in the films are about this, and its objective is to enhance the emotions of the viewer and connect really with what is happening. An example we can do it one of the most famous one, that is the Eye of the Tiger, that is from Rocky.
Now Mariana is going to talk to us about the diffusion of the music. You can start.
Thank you, Kate. Music has been around us for many, many years, but people could only listen to it live. Well, that changed through time. and I'm going to take you through this wonderful timeline along my partner, Cassandra. First, recordings. The first device that enabled the recording of live music was the phonautograph, invented in 1857 by Edward Léon Scott de Martinville, a French inventor. While this device did not allow the user to play back the recording, it did set the standard for how to record music. In 1887, Thomas Edison invented the phonograph. It consisted of a mechanical device using a groove cylinder to produce music and a large horn to project it. It was capable of recording and playing audio, but early models were pretty pitiful performers. Louder instruments became the norm in order to record properly, but regardless, the sound quality wasn't great. First, discs, vinyl. Later, the disc-shaped medium was found to be an even better option, with the competing gramophone, patented by Emil Berliner. The gramophone of 1889 replaced the rotating cylinder with a flat vinyl disc, rotated beneath the recording needle. Berliner also invented a method of mass-producing copies of the original record. Cassette. In 1962, the Philips Company of the Netherlands invented and released the first compact audio cassette, which could hold up to 60 minutes of music and was smaller and easier to handle. Its popularity was facilitated by Sony's Walkman, which was released in 1979. For the first time, you could listen to your music without bothering others in public, and people could copy broadcasted music onto blank tapes and create a personalized audio experience. CDs. The compact disc, or CD, was developed by Sony and Philips as a new project in 1982. CDs were a big deal because they were the beginning of both the digital and recordable disc era. The introduction of rewritable CDs in 1990, which could be written and rewritten, allowed customers to create mixed audio discs. Discs also have excellent audio quality and performance, more so than other digital formats. They have high fidelity, portability, durability, and elicit a complete sound spectrum with no distortion and perfect clarity. For roughly 30 years, the CD was the undisputed king of audio distribution and consumption. However, CDs began to fall off in the 2000s, especially after 2010, with the increasing popularity of the MP3 format used in digital music players.
With this section, my name is Cassandra, and the first thing I'm going to talk about is the radio. How is it related to music diffusion? How this diffusion evolved? In 1895, invented by Guglielmo Marconi, radio became the de facto method of consuming live news, music, and entertainment. By the 30s, most houses owned one. In 1854, the first pocket-sized transistor radio entered the market, allowing people to carry radio access with them on the go. But time before that, the creation of the movies with sound in 1927 helped to produce more elaborated music works. Music has been in cinema since it was created. The first silent movies of 20th centuries already had music, and different kinds of music were created for different scenes: comedy, romance, thriller, or horror. In the 1930s, television was born. In the TV, music could be found in movies and TV, advertising, cartoons, music programs, and songs video clips. A lot of years have passed now since that. Nowadays, we have digital music. Digital music is a versatile format allowing easy manipulation, sharing, and downloading with very little storage space requirements or costs. The MP3 format made its first appearance in 1993 with the popularity of Napster, but unfortunately, because it is difficult to control due to its easy distribution and sharing, it gave way to piracy. In 2003, Apple released iTunes for Windows operating systems. Early Apple sales were slow due to their limited compatibility with only Mac computers. Sales lifted when PCs were made compatible. True digital streaming services like Pandora and Spotify are now an increasing majority in music consumption, which is also now recorded digitally. For a small monthly subscription fee, there's access to thousands of albums and songs at a time with no charge per song or album. This is how these days we have music at the click of a button.
This has been all for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know your opinions and thank you for tuning in. Bye!